Thank you very much. Indeed, excellence is a language. How do you practically, what measures, step by step, would you put in place to improve efficiency and transparency?
I think where it starts with your human capital. Make sure that the people you're working with are well trained, they're well equipped. So from the time the election cycle starts, let's look at our laws. Are there places where there's elasticity that can be battened down? Secondly, let's look at our technology. Now I'm talking as if I'm in the IEBC. Let's look at our technology. Is it the latest technology we have? Is it the best that we can afford? Once that is in place, the people who I have, are they trained to use this technology and efficiency to the best of their ability? Then my Nakiai case told us the polling station is where the election result is finalized. So I need to have seamless communication between the polling station and the tallying center. So when I send my officers, is there enough technological support? The thing we saw last time of places without network. Now, can we change and start using Starlink, for example, that is satellite-based, is not dependent on phone coverage, so that everything is done seamless and in real time? Back here as well, what is the role of other stakeholders? What's the role of media in participating in the process? The political party observers, the other election observers, how much transparency do they have? So that everybody is coming with you from the point where people open the polls to the time when the ballots are being counted, to when they're being tallied, to when they're being announced. So if we uphold that the process of end-to-end transparency, then you leave very little room for guesswork or for mischief, as it were.
Thank you. Allow me to pursue this a little bit better in another way.
Please.
You have been observing elections, quite a number of elections here, and you have also observed elections in a country like Ghana, where you say that the election results is declared within 12 hours. And it's a big country, just like ours. And yet here in Kenya, we hear all the time the IEBC asking for more money to do, to get, to introduce or to enhance the use of technology in conducting elections. What stops us from employing that technology to bring that efficiency in practical matters and to create that transparency, to address the issue of trust deficit? So I want to bring you back into just the practical things that you would do. Imagine that on 1st of June, or sometimes next month or the month after, you become the chair of the Electoral Commission.
I think so far the problem with technology has been, again, that culture of suspicion. Vifaranga via computer, imagining that there are logarithms that are going to mess up with the result. Now, in this day and age, things have come a long way. So, for example, artificial intelligence is something that can be adopted to ensure the veracity of some of these processes. So it's not based on some server in France. It's something that it can be verified in real time. Another thing I think that where we can leverage on technology, like I said, the technology we have has the ability to transmit results in real time. Last time we did not do the transmission in real time because, again, the trust deficit meant we wanted to wait, let the returning officer come to Nairobi, let the IEBC verify what he has, let the political party agents sit around the table and each verify before it is announced. Now, that time, it took us almost the entire 7 days to do that process. And I think we've learned from that because by the time the results were being declared, it was the tension had built up too much. So this time, put in the transmission as well. When you've put in the image, also key in the results, let the tabulation start. At the moment you have keyed it in, even as you travel to Nairobi with your hard copies for them to be verified. I think another thing that we can leverage on, and especially to the question you brought about cost, is to come to a place where we are more pragmatic about what we do. So currently our ballot paper has got over 7, I think, security features. It has more features than our money. And it's absolutely ridiculous for paper that is single use to have that many security features simply because of a trust deficit. I think time has come as Kenyans for us to decide, you know what, some of these things we can do in-house, leverage on the technology we have available here and now, to have ballot papers that are verifiable. And like I said, if the transmission is done in real time, there's no time to stuff ballot boxes, because once you close the polls, you count, you transmit. There's no time for hanky-panky in between. So that would be how I think we would be able to use technology and surmount this trust deficit and bring down the cost. Because if we produce the ballot papers here locally, it will save us a whole lot of money.
Thank you. Just one tiny question
Sure.
to follow up. I'm trying to see how we can deal with this trust deficit. How would you convince people, especially politicians, to accept to have the ballot paper printed in Kenya with maybe one security feature?
It depends on what that security feature is. If it's something that's not easily replicable, and you know, we've come to a place where even how we have structured our polling stations, only certain number of people vote in a particular polling station. I mean, the last time the children are doing KCSE exams, we saw they employed technology to have the candidate's picture on the answer sheet and even their name and index number printed on. You know, it can get to a place where we are printing personalized ballot papers. So even if we are counting, it is the ballot paper for Joy in that polling station that she has cast. And if she has not cast it, it should remain in the. So it's a matter of being creative about it. And when push comes to shove, is putting our foot down and saying, you know what, this is what we're going to do. Because like I said before, the seeming over-involvement of political actors in the electoral process is a major reason why people have a trust deficit, because these are the people playing in this field. They're the direct beneficiaries of this process, and yet they have almost the biggest say in what goes on in the process. So there'll come a time when the push will come to shove, a foot will have to be put down, public participation, members of the public can also lend their voice to the process, and the politicians will have to listen to the voice of people, which is said to be the voice of God.
Okay, just one last one, Chair. If we printed a ballot paper that is personalized to Joy, wouldn't that interfere with the principle of a secret ballot? Just think about it. Thank you, Chair.
And perhaps just to pick up there, I think the people of Kenya may not be the problem you want to convince. How will you convince politicians first? Because they're the ones whose votes get lost or whatever it is.
Or get stolen.
Yes, you need to get there. How would you convince politicians first?
One of the things we saw during the last general election is that there were a lot fewer cases that were filed challenging some of the other races, apart from the presidential one. There were a lot fewer cases that were filed because the process this time around was a lot more open to the people who are running. And so when the courts have pronounced themselves and said, for you to challenge an election result, don't just say generalities. Tell us exactly what went wrong in what polling station so that that can be addressed. When the standard was raised, the standard to say, complain about something specific, then maybe many of them now could not use the excuse of, it was marred by transparency and opacity. I did not know what happened, but something must have gone wrong. No, now you had to have a reason to say that this election was interfered with. So I think part of it is what has come out of our courts, where the standard of challenging an election has been made, such that you don't just come with any complaints and say, I'm not satisfied. Now you must address yourself to a specific issue. So I think with the politicians, it's nurture. They will have to be trained to accept results. And if we have seen it in the races for MCA, for MP, and for women rep and for governor, then I think eventually, even for the presidential result, it will come to a place where you'll be asked in this entire process, what exactly is your problem? And if you cannot pinpoint it, then you are forced to accept the results. So eventually, we will get there. But it is a tall order because I think the culture so far has been every result is challenged.
Thank you very much. I'll ask FCPA Tanui to pick up from there. Thank you.
Brenda, I admire your thinking in terms of how we can change our electoral process and the ideas that our ambassador here is asking you whether they are workable or not. But I like the idea that you are very open. And I want to take that with the elections, like even in the US. Actually, in the US, people watch TV and they will know who is the president by simply sitting and watching the television. So I would wish that one day we wouldn't have to struggle and spend 2,000 shillings per ballot paper in our country and be able to sit behind our TV screens and within 12 hours or after the election or even by 10 p.m. we close the election at 6. So by 10 p.m. before we go to sleep, we already know who is or who are our election winners. So thank you for those ideas that you're coming up with. Now I want you to share your experience in Ghana in terms of the leadership. How is the structure of Ghana Electoral Commission in terms of the role of the chair of that Electoral Commission? Any experience that you got while you were there?
No, I did not go to Ghana. I compared and contrasted what went on in Ghana, and I don't think I can be very authoritative to state how they go through their election cycles. So that one is a pass for me.
Okay. Now, coming home, you've told us you've been, you are the current chair of KPLC, yeah?
Yes, I am.
And BCLB, you are a board member.
I am a former board member.
A former board member.
Yes.
So those are part-time responsibilities, isn't it? Even
yes.
KPLC.
Yeah, even KPLC.
Now, here at IEBC, you will be the chairperson on a full-time basis.
Yes.
Now, KPLC is a public listed company.
Yes, it is.
It is also a state corporation by the fact that government wants 50.1%.
Yes, it is.
And also PCLB is a state corporation.
Yes, it is.
So how will your skills or your experience at PCLB and KPLC help you in transitioning to IEBC as a chairperson?
Let me start with BCLB because that's the easier one. And BCLB, I was a director. So on that, I was a team player. There was a chairman and I was one of the team players. And one of the things that I think helped me with this is I'm a religious person. I have been a believer since I was a child. BCLB is managing a vice, for lack of a better word. I had to open my mind up to alternative living that people have, be non-judgmental about it, be effective as a director. And I think that stint at BCLB was very important also to understand how people's day-to-day lives are affected by decisions of big corporations. So for example, when I was in the BCLB is when this sports betting had just started. And we realized that even grandmothers, as in students, were being drawn into this thing, and we realized it was a problem. We tried to bring in regulations to curb this, but eventually got to a place where, you move on and the next council comes in, and some of those things, the follow-through is not as thorough. So that opened me up to how decisions made at this table affect day-to-day. It's stories of children who have eaten school fees. A mother who children send her money in the village and she bets it all until she starts selling condo in the estate to try and do that. Now, coming to Kenya Power, one of the things that I learned at Kenya Power is that when you're chairman, you sit on that chair, yes, and you think you're almighty, but you're actually a first among equals. And that is a lesson that I have had to learn daily. So when I went in as chair, that was my first stint at chairing such a big organization. I had to learn, like I said, the humility of leaning on the wisdom in the room. I was not an engineer, and this is an engineering firm. It is very male-dominated because engineers mostly happen to be men. And I had to come to a place where I admit this is where my capabilities stop, and this is where learning starts. Now, that last 2.5 years that I have been at the helm of Kenya Power has taught me the benefit of continuous learning. But not only that, I found Kenya Power at a time when the staff morale was very low. The quotient of productivity was it was wanting. The organization itself, the Auditor General had indicated that it was functionally insolvent. If it wasn't a public utility company, it would have been advisable to wind it up. And that is where, when I joined Kenya Power, that's where I found it. Now, the last 2 years have been about rebuilding the confidence of the members of staff, bringing camaraderie back into it, trying to bring up a culture of efficiency. We are not where we want to be, but of late we have started seeing it paying dividends. People are working harder than they've ever worked before. We were able to convince Parliament to lift moratoriums on hiring. People had been resigning, they had been retiring, they had been dying with no replacement. The staff was stretched to the limit. Now, we're showing them that we have good governance now, we can be trusted to hire more. We started by hiring an MD, a process that they had tried to outsource to other, technical experts, and they had failed. My board went ahead and did it, and we have ourselves an MD who has been able to turn around the company. So that has given me the confidence to know that, even if a task is difficult, with right leadership and just resetting the tone from the top, you're able to achieve a lot in terms of a change and a turnaround. If you walk into Kenya Power right now, you'll find staff that are motivated to work. You'll find people who are putting their best foot forward. And as we have declared in our last results and in our half-year results, we are back in profitability. And I'm very, very grateful, because I know it's not just because of the chairman that they got, but I've been able to rally the management and my board and the members to have a new trajectory to bring Kenya Power back to the place where it's supposed to be, where it's offering value for the shareholders and for the government and for the people of Kenya.
Now, one unique feature about the commission is that you will not be attending board meetings on a quarterly basis, like the way you're doing at KPLC. You will be a full-time employee with 6 other commissioners, all full-time. At the same time, you have secretary to the commission, who is the chief executive